Secular Yakking, Episode 74. How the F did this happen? November 10th, 2016.
The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetrated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. But this leads at length to a more formal and permanent despotism. The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual, and sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. George Washington.
Exploring the intersection of politics, science, culture, and history from a secular perspective. It's Secular Yakking with Robert and Tom, the dynamic duo of obscure secular media.
And welcome back, everyone. I hope you had you know what, I'm not even going to go there. I had a pretty shitty week.
Yeah, just don't. Just don't even go there.
Yeah, it's not even worth it. So, let's just get into some stuff here. I guess I'll start with Twitter. Oh, well, first I want to, obviously do a disclaimer. Due to events this week, Tom and I are both rather unhappy with things. So this show's gonna kind of go explicit. Just a forewarning.
Yes. Robert, I asked Robert specifically for permission because usually we don't cuss on the show, and he graciously granted me permission to swear at all of you.
Yeah. So, before we get at the swearing, let's get at the Twitters.
All right, let's do it. We have a lot.
We got quite a few this week. I'll start at the beginning. Words to a Silent God, Life After Doubt, Morgan Stringer, the other half of my Skeptical podcast, which Trav Mamone followed us last week, Greg James, Atticus Blake, Very Fishy News, and I think I told you would like that podcast. You might want to check it out.
Okay.
Kind of funny. It's funny, satirical news,
I love stuff like that.
Yeah, I figured you would. Ralph Thunder, That's Life, MVD Entertainment, Rob Wade, Angry Old Man Podcast, which is another satirical podcast you might like, Richard John Brown, Don't Eat the Gravy, David Packman, Faith Atheism Nub, Ashley Atkinson, David Packman Show, Wacky Herbals, Chris Pandris, I think.
Sure.
Ruby and Dan Dyer.
Wow.
And those, we got quite a few followers this week.
We did. Like, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Didn't you say you found a hashtag that...
Yeah, I found a hashtag called Podern Family, which is basically a hashtag podcasters are starting to use so that we can cross-promote shows. So whenever I hashtag Podern Family podcast comes up, we'll retweet them or, and do things like that. So it's kind of cool.
Gotta support the family.
Yeah, and it's not all atheist podcasts. There's tons and tons of the podcasts out there. So, and it's kind of a cool thing we do.
That is.
Which I will get into it after this election bullshit is done.
Yeah. Oh, you got the first cuss word on me. Don't make this a competition, Robert.
Yeah, okay.
And any stories other than the election? Any?
Oh, man. Well, I kind of gave my story yesterday in my mini episode, which we may look into doing those a little more often. So
yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to that yet. You sent that to me when I was on my way to my day job. So
yeah, that's fine. It basically laid out my theory on why we lost, and let's just say it's because we fed the troll.
That seems accurate. Actually, speaking of that, I just before we got on here, I listened to Sam Harris's newest podcast, and it's about how Trump got elected and so on and so forth. And I would really encourage people to go, and this is coming from me, and people who have listened for a while know I'm not like the biggest fan of Sam Harris, but I highly recommend listening to what Sam Harris has to say about the election. It was pretty good. So jump onto his, I think it's samharris.org, and you can find his latest podcast. I have a story about how I didn't get to vote.
Oh, let's talk about that.
I'm pretty bitter about it. So,
I'm sure.
So, I just moved to California a couple months ago, and I registered to vote in mid-October, and in Missouri, you always have a polling place. Like, always, unless you live, like, way out in the boonies, right? Well, I don't. I live in, like, a city. And so it didn't occur to me that I wouldn't have a polling place. So I registered to vote, and I never got anything in the mail from the, county registrar. And so I was like, that's really weird. So election day comes around, and I get onto my computer to look up where my polling place is so I can go vote. And it says, our records indicate that we sent you a mail-in ballot because you don't have a polling place.
Oh, that's just...
Yeah,
good.
which is fine, except I never got the mail-in ballot.
Figures.
And so either it never got delivered, or my guess is that it accidentally got thrown away by the people I live with. So, who would be...
Well, that kind of sucks.
Yeah. And so, that is the story of how I did not get to vote for Hillary Clinton.
Well,
But
luckily you live in California.
I live in California and went to Hillary Clinton anyway.
So,
all the things I wanted to pass in California, except for the death penalty. We reaffirmed the death penalty.
Well, that kind of sucks too. I'm not a huge fan of the death penalty.
Yeah, but weed is legal now, so God, we're all gonna need it.
Yes, and you're not the only state to do it. There was like 5 others.
Yes, there are.
I think the people knew what was coming.
They did. I always made when the election was going on, I always made the joke that I was going to vote for Gary Johnson because I wanted to watch the world burn and I wanted to be high while I did it.
Well, you get your wish.
Yeah. So that's my week.
My name is Jonathan Ariola of TDTF Pod. The more voices you hear, the more we observe and feel, the more we learn about the other facets of this complex and wondrous beast that is humanism and free thought. Join me on the science-loving journey through topics like justice, murder, family, diligence, taste, history, society, race, boob jobs, law, addiction, video games, fear, sacrifice, children. Wait, not sacrificing children, that's not what I meant. Bring the popcorn and watch me break down the issues too deep, too fast. Join me at TDTF Pod. I'm Jonathan Ariola. Talk to you soon.
So,
Yeah.
I guess we'll move on to the next item.
Yeah. So cabinet.
I am an old man.
Wow.
I screwed it up. We even
I'll
talked
accept
about
that.
this beforehand. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah.
I am an old man. Most people hate me, but I don't like them either, so that makes it all even.
Yep, we're going to start the show with the Potter Award.
And I knew that beforehand.
And, yeah, he did know that beforehand, but that's okay. That's fine.
It's all right.
We're kind of just grooving here.
I'm still recovering.
So, this week's I know. I am too. I had like 4 hours of sleep in 48 hours, so I'm like, eh. Anyway, this week's Potter Award goes to the American people.
Because you are all dumb as fuck.
Pretty much.
Not all of you. 49.
With some exceptions.
With a few exceptions. About 49.5% of you are dumb as fuck.
Yeah, because damn, you don't vote in probably one of the most important elections of, I know, my lifetime.
Yeah. Well, my lifetime's much shorter than yours, so I'll have to agree.
Yeah, I mean,
Robert's old.
I started voting with Bush Senior, right? That wasn't a huge issue. I mean, up until this point, our biggest issue was Gore Bush. Big deal. There wasn't a huge difference between Bush and Gore. Well, there was, but not like this time.
But not like this time. Yeah, the first election
Right.
I got to vote in, presidential election I got to vote in was 2004. So Bush Part 2, and I voted for...
Yeah, it was Bush Kerry.
Bush Kerry. I voted for John Kerry, just so everyone knows.
Yeah. And, it's not like they... Well, in some places they do make it hard to vote. So we got some voter suppression going on, and we got some voter ID stuff going on. So yeah, there's an excuse for some people that didn't vote.
Some of you didn't get a mail-in ballot.
Some people... I call that voter suppression. I think that's what it was.
Or your mail got thrown away.
But seriously, it's like I said yesterday in my mini thing. It's when I compared Trump to being a troll, I had read something that had said part of the Republican goals was to make the election process so unpalatable that people wanted to stay home. And guess what? They succeeded.
Yeah. This
They
election was insane. I mean, even I was like, and I'm into, I'm way into politics, and
Yeah.
even I was getting politics fatigue. By the end of this one, it was just kind of like,
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, just let it be over.
Yeah, and we'd even dropped a lot of the politics out of the show because it just got too much.
Mm-hmm.
We could have done a ton more politics. We hardly ever hit the presidential election at all on the show.
Yeah, it was just too much on. I mean, it just. I like. In a way, it feels kind of nice that at least it's done and over. It's like, like pulling a Band-Aid off, off your arm. And it's gonna suck, but at least once it's pulled and off, you're like, okay, at least I can move on with my life now. Maybe.
Well, but this time we pulled off the Band-Aid. Now it's gonna get gangrene.
That's also true.
So
you're not helping my mood.
I'm sorry. I didn't exactly mean this. It was a lighthearted show.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
But we can try.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So I guess we could go through some possibilities here with Mr. Trump. So yeah. Oh yeah. So congratulations, American people. You get a Potter Award.
Yeah. You're the first time a country, a nation, has gotten a Potter Award. Very good. Very good.
America.
Well, they also voted in Republican Congress completely. The Senate and the House both went Republican.
Yes.
And roughly, 2/3-ish of the governors?
Yeah, most governors. I was watching Bill Maher, and was it last week or the week before? I forget. But anyway, he was talking about how there's a creeping, slow right-wing takeover. And a lot of times Bill Maher is kind of very hyperbolic. He's a comedian. And,
yeah.
And I was just thinking about that, and I was like, no, that's accurate. There really is.
Well, it was accurate. And they just kind of sprang on us like some guy hiding in the bushes.
Yeah. Like, insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah. And I just found out today that most of the state houses went Republican, too.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to have to deal with that when they start pushing states' rights. Those are the states that are going to want the rights.
Here come some more RIFRA battles, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm guaranteeing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of...
Yeah.
There's a lot of... I mean, I know people who cried because of the outcome of this election.
Yeah.
I have friends who are genuinely concerned about their civil rights now. And that is really...
Yeah, I mean,
I'm straight white male. Like, for the most part, this doesn't necessarily affect me as an individual that much, other than the fact that it wasn't my choice. There are people now who are genuinely concerned about their civil rights, and they're friends of mine, and that's deeply, deeply upsetting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing some of the stories coming out. I've got friends of mine that are, they are seriously concerned. I mean, we got LGBT people, friends that are like, what the hell are we going to do? Are we going to have to go back into hiding? Mm-hmm. I mean, are we about to lose 40 years of progress?
Yes. Here's what kills me about, third-party voters, okay? I'm going to rage on third-party. I know there's a debate right now where third-party affected the election or if it didn't. Whatever. I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay.
Libertarians are usually fairly fond of saying that they're socially liberal but fiscally conservative. That's a pretty libertarian thing to say.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard it.
Oh, I've heard it many times.
And so going into a high-stakes election like this one with, Supreme Court issues, and, some of the progress we've just made with LGBT rights, how you could be, say you're socially liberal, and then in a high-stakes election, not vote for the candidate who at least has a chance of winning the election and will uphold those socially liberal principles is absolutely fucking beyond me.
Yeah.
Like, well, I cannot comprehend that.
Right. I got into a Twitter discussion with a libertarian atheist earlier today or yesterday. I don't remember what it was. It's been a very long couple days. And they had voted for Johnson, right? But the whole thing was I was talking about how Pence and Trump are going to create this fascist theocratic regime.
They're going to try.
And he could not see it, right?
Right.
And he was like, well, I just don't see it. It's not going to affect us any at all. I'm like, really? The typical libertarian crap right there.
Well, by us,
and that's the problem. They didn't see it. Right. He didn't see it as a threat to him.
Right. So therefore, it doesn't matter. Right. Trump isn't a threat to me, but he is a threat to friends and family and
right
and people I care about. Not to mention just general human decency and my principles as a liberal anyway. But
Right.
like it's absolutely insane to me. And so if you like, I kind of I do have a couple libertarian friends, and I kind of rage quit them. Like, we're still friends, it's fine. We just, but I kind of raged out at them, and I was like, how the fuck can you be socially liberal and throw your vote away in a high stakes election?
Yeah. That's and same thing with the Jill Steinians. You know,
Yeah.
seriously,
Yeah, if you voted for Jill Stein, you're a fucking idiot.
pretty
I'm
much.
just gonna say it. If you voted for, you can quote me. That'll be our quote we start the show with. If you voted for Jill Stein, you're a fucking idiot, Thomas Essel.
Yeah, we may have to do that because it's true. I mean, it was always going to be a throwaway vote. There's no way Jill Stein's going to get the 5% necessary ever.
Right.
So it's not even worth talking about.
Yeah. So
Johnson almost got the 5% in a couple places.
yeah, which would
Still.
have been a really useful 5% for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
I mean, if the people,
but
if
yeah,
the
I kind of hit on that yesterday.
people who had voted, I was reading something where it was if the people who had voted for Jill Stein and half the people who had voted for Gary Johnson voted for Hillary Clinton, she would have won Florida.
That is highly possible.
Yeah, I forget where I read that. I'd have to look it up. It was CNN or NPR or something like that. But
Yeah, I saw something similar to that today about Pennsylvania or Michigan. I don't remember what state it was.
right, and so the idea that Gary Johnson was only taking votes away from Trump, only conservatives were attracted to Gary Johnson, is complete fucking bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
I know lots of socially liberal people, and just liberal people in general, who voted for Gary Johnson or who were very seriously considering it. So the idea that he was only taking votes away from Trump is complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah, I agree. I don't even know where to go from there. Anyway, I think we should go from there.
Yeah. Do we want to cover the cabinet possibilities?
Um,
I guess we could go.
we can a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe just touch on a couple of the really bad
Yeah.
ones.
So for where did you get this from?
This came from I think Politico.
Okay. So
And I've read similar lists in a lot of different places, but this one came from Politico.
Secretary of State, he's thinking about Newt Gingrich, huh?
Yeah. He's been on this show a few times. Well, not him directly, but we've talked about him quite a bit.
Of course, Newt Gingrich is just a giant gas bag of stupid.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Rudy Giuliani for Attorney General. That's rough.
Yeah, there's a good idea.
Dude, Rudy Giuliani is straight crazy as fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
Or Chris Christie, who is not above using his office to punish opponents.
I feel like Rudy would be worse though.
That's possible. Yeah, it's definitely Rudy would be worse. Yeah,
the
he's
EPA one, Myron
Ebel.
Ebel.
Yeah,
who is a climate change denier, or the head of as head of the EPA.
yeah. There's a good spot.
Like that.
Trump's staff have already said that they want to basically dismantle the EPA
Right.
because they overregulate businesses.
We don't want that.
No. So best way to do it, put a climate change denier in there and do nothing.
Yep.
Don't enforce any rules.
And I think that the things that a lot of people are missing out here, because people are very much focused on Trump being president. I think one of the things people are missing is that Trump is kind of a vapid, just empty husk of a person and has no real political direction or political will. So he is basically going to sit back and just enjoy the fame of being president while other people actually run the country. And those are the people who are going to matter. And you get somebody like Rudy Giuliani or Newt Gingrich or Ben Carson as education secretary. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Ben
there's
Carson,
a good choice.
Who thinks
the man who thinks what was it? Pyramids are grain silos?
You might as well just get the dude with the really long name from Ancient Aliens with the hair. Like, you might as well just stick him in there. Like, these are the people who are going to matter. Mike Pence is going to, a lot of people always say, Dick Cheney was president, under George Bush.
Yeah, and you're going to have the same thing here
It's going to be
because
the same thing.
Trump has already said, they've already said that the vice president is likely going to run domestic and foreign policy.
Which is all of it.
What else is there to do? Seriously, you got domestic policy, foreign policy.
Right.
What?
And, of course, Mike Pence is anti-LGBT, Climate change denier. I mean,
anti-abortion.
Anti-evolution.
He's a
Isn't he the one that wanted women, or he passed the law where women who had an abortion had to have a funeral for the fetus?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, he did that.
Yeah. I mean,
he passed one of the worst RFRA laws in the nation.
So, and
it got so bad.
This man is now the president of the Senate.
Yeah.
I mean, really, so the only check on presidential power right now is really Congress, which of course is in the hands of Republicans. So it's literally up to Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan to be the voices of reason. Think about that.
Yeah.
How terrifying is that? Paul Ryan, maybe.
Yeah. We talked about this. We were talking about it with the girls in the car, and I was talking about, what's going to happen. And they were talking about secession, the not succeeding, but the line of succession for president. Yeah, not succeeding, succession. I said that wrong. And they were like, well, who's next? I said, well, Pence is next. They're like, well, who's after that? And I said, well, I think it's the Speaker of the House, and then it goes to the Senate Majority Leader.
So it would be Paul Ryan.
Right.
And
so I'm like, you have no good choices. Paul Ryan is the only decent choice down that line.
Yeah. I would take Paul Ryan.
He's the first one that makes sense.
I would take Paul Ryan
That's
for
sad.
Donald Trump any day of the week. But
exactly.
And I know Paul Ryan has extremely regressive views, but I think that he's at least a normal human being within the bounds of within normal bounds of decency.
Yeah, he's not a theocrat. Let's start with that. He's certainly not a theocrat. He understands that government has a place and religion has a place.
Yeah.
He may want to mix them occasionally, right?
Yes.
But he doesn't want to implement biblical laws.
Right. He's not psychotic. He's not Mike Pence.
Right.
I think my problem with Paul Ryan isn't so much his views, is that how easily Paul Ryan caves. He's very easily controlled by the Republican Party. He has
I was going to say that. He was so easily manipulated. He was the worst person that could have well, for us, he's the worst person that could have gotten majority leader, but the best person for the Republicans.
Right, because he's easily manipulated by the party. Paul Ryan has no political testicles.
Right.
But which is so frustrating, because if you actually watch Paul Ryan speak, you can see the conflict in him.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, really, and then Mitch McConnell's a fucking dumbass. But
well, the thing about Paul Ryan, he never really came out in full support of Trump either.
He never did, but he gave the
head nod.
Yeah, he gave
is the basically nod, what he gave.
Right, because his party told him to.
Right.
And then you have Mitch McConnell, of course,
who's already said his first act will be to repeal Obamacare.
Right.
He's already said that. So come February-ish, start looking for those votes to come up.
I myself was actually never a big fan of Obamacare.
Yeah, I think it's got some drawbacks.
Yeah, it's got a lot. But I don't like anything that's based on a capitalist system forcing people to purchase a product. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it went far enough. I would have liked to seen single payer or true universal health care.
Right. So the problem is they will replace it with nothing, and it will go back to companies charging whatever they want.
Actually, he's going to replace it with worse than nothing. He's going to take away the state lines for insurance.
Oh, really?
So you can shop across state lines for insurance.
And
I think this is a bad idea, because there's a lot of states that have very relaxed regulations on what insurance has to cover.
Oh.
So the company could go, say, like Arizona has really shitty, really shitty regulations, right? So all these companies would just have to do is move to Arizona and offer Arizona-style insurance to everybody.
Oh.
And there's nothing you can do.
Nice. It's capitalism. #capitalism.
The
free market will fix everything.
Yeah, the free market, yeah. When it comes to necessities like that, they should be in the public, not in private hands.
I agree.
Has bit.We Trust invaded your town? Are you tired of government officials who want to plaster bit.We Trust on taxpayer-owned property? Are you afraid because your local sheriff placed an bit.We Trust decal on the patrol cars? We are here to help. The original motto project is for those who feel the separation of church and state is an important issue and should be honored regardless of your belief or lack thereof. Theists, non-theists, and all free thinkers are welcome. We need your support to show politicians that diversity exists within our nation, and their promotion of a monotheistic religion and push for theocracy will not be tolerated. Stand up and be heard. Join us at originalmodel.us.
So have you seen his first 100 days kind of proposal?
Oh my God, yes.
All right.
I have.
And this one, where are we at on time? We're going to kind of jet through this one so we don't go too far over because it's going to be kind of a long show.
Yeah.
But he put out, of course, his 100-day action plan to make America great again. I believe he put this out a couple months ago. But it
was part of his election
But he's
platform.
just now, it's just now really getting a lot of press. It's the first time I've actually seen it. So, because it is.
Yeah.
So, here's just a couple of them. On his first day in office, he wants to propose a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on all members of Congress. Of course, Congress is going to have none of that.
Well, no.
So this one's actually a good one because I'm kind of hoping that there will be a bunch of Republican infighting.
Yeah. Well, I'm not entirely opposed to term limits on Congress, provided you remove the lobbyist.
Right. And he actually has a couple of...
I think he has something about that.
Lifetime ban on White House officials lobbying on behalf of foreign governments. And a
Right. Well, I'm saying completely remove lobbyists.
Oh, no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Yeah.
I know. That's the problem. Because you can't have... My view on this, on term limits and lobbyists, is if you put term limits on Congress, the only people who are going to stay there forever are lobbyists.
Yeah, because he's proposing he proposes a 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials becoming lobbyists after they leave government service.
Right, but there's no limit on how long someone can be a lobbyist. So you can have a professional lobbyist in there forever, right? And you get these new Congress people coming in, and he already knows exactly the tricks he needs to do to get them to do what he wants.
That's a good point.
And since they're new, they don't know the tricks to kind of avoid that. So you got this whole issue going on of basically you'll have lobbyists controlling Congress with new Congress people every, either 6 or 12 years or whatever they set it at.
So that's some of the things there.
So that's my issue with that.
What else have we got here? He wants to renegotiate NAFTA or withdraw.
I'm not... That one I'm okay with. I think NAFTA is a mostly bad idea. I'm not totally in favor of NAFTA.
He wants to announce...
I mean, I'm not a trade agreement kind of person, so I don't know a whole ton about it.
Yeah.
But
he wants to announce the withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was actually a Bernie thing.
Yeah, Bernie was opposed to TPP.
Yes, he was.
And like I said, I'm not a trade thing guy. It's not really my deal. From what I understand of TPP, we don't get a great deal out of it.
Right. I believe Bernie's opposition to it was similar, and plus it creates, basically encourages terrible worker conditions.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. This one's my favorite, is direct the Secretary of the Treasury to label China a currency manipulator.
Which is useless.
Actually, it would start a trade war with China.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
The worst idea.
Yeah. Let's right before we start a real war, let's start a trade war.
Yeah. He will direct the Secretary of Commerce and U.S. Trade Representative to identify all foreign trading abuses that unfairly impact American workers and direct them to use every tool under American international law to end those abuses immediately.
No change?
Because that's basically a big sentence that means nothing.
Yeah, that's what they're supposed to do now. Okay.
Cancel every unconstitutional executive action, memorandum, and order issued by President Obama. My guess is...
Well, then he will cancel 0 then,
My
right?
guess is that they'll decide that all of them are unconstitutional and cancel all of them.
Oh, all right. Then we have a different definition of unconstitutional.
Yes. So,
right.
I mean, that's just kind of the stuff he's talking. There's a lot. I mean, this list is really long, so I'm not going to go through all of it.
Yeah, it is.
But it's just I mean, some of it isn't is, I mean, I feel like...
Yeah, when I read through it, I was like, oh, that's not a bad idea, and that's not a bad idea. And then there's others like, holy shit, what is that?
Yeah, I'm trying to find, this one, School Choice and Education Opportunity Act, redirects education dollars to get... Yeah,
that one.
Redirects education dollars to give parents the right to send their kids to the private, public, charter, magnet, religious, or homeschool of their choice. Ends Common Core. Brings education supervision to local communities. It expands vocational and technical education and make 2- and 4-year college affordable. Which how are they going to do that? I don't know.
The only sentence I agree with on there are the last two.
Yeah.
Right? Bring back technical and vocational training and make college affordable.
The charter. I actually work for a charter school, and we receive public money. I think people are really misinformed about what charter schools actually are.
I would tend to agree with you because I probably am one of them.
Yeah. We basically...
Well, there's different charter schools throughout the nation.
Schools,
so.
It gives you more flexibility with your curriculum and with the way your school can actually be set up. The school I work for actually has several different like teaching philosophies, and parents can choose between them. And I won't get into the whole thing. And so it kind of gives you more...
We'll have to do a charter.
We'll have to do a thing on... Yeah.
We'll have to do a show on charter schools.
Actually, my mom is the director of education for the charter school, and so we should have her on to do that. So I'm not...
Okay. We should do that sometime.
But if we receive public money, and we basically function as a public school.
Right. You have to adhere to the same rules,
yes,
right?
Roughly the same rules, yes. We're just not required to use, like, the state mandated curriculum and things like that.
Right.
And so there's a little bit more...
But you can't like discriminate because of religion or...
No, and
like
we can't violate the separation of church and state.
Okay. See.
Like, for example, the other day we had a student who wanted to... the student's church was promoting some, like, messages of love campaign, and this student wanted to use one of the walls in our, like, we call it the multi-purpose room. It's just a big giant room. To do this, and they said, oh, I want to put Bible verses up and so on and so forth, and they were emphatically told no by me.
Yeah, I mean,
which they weren't thrilled about.
That's the way it should be.
Yes, but so...
Well, yeah.
But anyway, private schools, I'm not okay with public money being used for private schools because...
No.
Private schools can discriminate. For example, like a charter school, typically, we can't discriminate in any way, shape, or form. A private school can.
Right.
I'm not too familiar with magnet schools, so I can't really comment on that.
I know a little bit about magnet schools, and I'm not opposed to that because they're like so if you think back to like the 60s and 70s, they were the schools that they sent the pregnant girls to.
Oh.
That's my understanding of magnet schools. They're kind of attached to the school, but that's where they kind of send the other kids.
I've also heard of magnet schools that are attached to colleges. And so
so you can have that version too. So you can have the higher learners going to a magnet school because they need a different educational requirements.
So it's not, of course, totally opposed to using public money for religious schools.
Absolutely opposed to
I don't really know how they would use public money for homeschooling, but okay. Well,
I thought it would have been nice to get paid to homeschool the kids.
Yeah. And homeschooling isn't always... I was actually homeschooled myself. So homeschooling isn't always the worst thing. So really the only issue there would be the private or religious schools.
Right.
Possibly the magnet schools, depending on...
well, it depends on the magnet school. For the most part, I think they're okay.
Yeah. I know a lot of people... We've had a lot of comments. Like I said, I work for a school. We've had a lot of comments from parents that are excited about Trump being president because it will end Common Core.
And that's another problem, because people don't understand Common Core.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on Common Core. Have you ever tried to teach Common Core? Because I have.
Well, that's just a thing. Well, here's my understanding of it that I get from teachers. Common Core is a set of standards to teach to get them to learn to this point. How you teach them that is pretty much up to you.
That sounds good, but that's not really how it happens.
Okay, because that's how it was explained to me by other teachers.
Like, maybe they are, but there are a set of standards, and I'm fine with standards. Most states have standards anyway. I don't know. I don't want to get too far into the Common Core thing, but I have mixed feelings about it.
Maybe we'll get some
brings
teachers on,
education
and we'll
it
discuss
brings
Common
education
Core.
supervision to local communities. That's already where it's at. That's why we have school districts.
Well, I think he's talking about ending the Department of Education and some of the standards that they apply.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and what bothers me about this is you could have a huge debacle like the Texas textbooks that they got printed that had Moses as a founding father.
And wrote out Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah. And called slaves something like compensated workers or something like that. I don't remember.
I laugh because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. So that's what bothers me about that is now instead of having some federal standards saying you have to teach this is the stuff you need to teach, right? So at that point they can put in whatever curriculum they want, which also means they might be able to start putting in creationism, especially like in states that have already tried it several times, Louisiana, Kansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi. Those states might be able to throw creationism back into science class.
So that's a little bit of what they're talking about. I mean, we won't know until January 20th, creeping up quick.
Yep. And then we'll get to see what the cabinet. Well, by January 21st, all these things should be started.
I'm just gonna.
So interesting.
I'm just
I don't
gonna
know.
drink a bunch for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I might have to.
And so one of the big things people are talking about is the Electoral College, because people are pissed off because Hillary Clinton won the popular vote but lost the Electoral College.
That is correct.
So the Electoral College, this is Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct, blah, 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 a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress, but no senator or representative or person holding the office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. That's so long. President...
Yeah, it's constitution.
Right, so the President and Vice President of the United States are elected by the Electoral College, which consists of 538 presidential electors from the 50 states and Washington, D.C. They have electors now? I think they have 3.
Yes, they do.
Or 2.
Yeah, they have. I think it's 3, yeah. Yeah, because they have 1 senator and 1 congressperson.
So, and they're elected on a state-by-state basis. Each state has different laws on how to do it and the laws that govern electors. So that is the Electoral College. And, of course, you have to get a simple majority of electoral votes. And congrats, you're president.
Yeah, most of the
And a lot of people now are kind of pushing for the Electoral College to be abolished. Of course, Gore is another example of this. So I don't know how I feel about that, because I know that it would basically shift all the power to states like California, New York.
Right. And which is why they have the Electoral
While
College.
I find that personally appealing, I'm not the only person who lives in the country. There are other states to consider. And so I don't know how I feel about abolishing the Electoral College. How about you?
I am mostly in favor of it. I do have that one issue where it will, the popular vote may underrepresent certain areas of the country, obviously.
Oh, massively underrepresented.
So, and that's, I mean, the whole middle of the country is not going to get properly represented by the
almost
president.
ever.
Right.
So, so that is...
So, this way, it's sort of this back and forth thing. But this is also a problem inherent with a two-party system.
But at the same time, a lot of those states that went red, if you actually look at the numbers, it wasn't, 90% voting for Trump. It's more like, it's closer to 50-50. So you have a lot of liberals in these states who also never get represented.
Right. So there's this catch-22 on this, right?
Right. So a lot of people...
Because some years... some years the Electoral College is going to go your way. Some years it's not. On its face, it seems like a bad idea, and I've opposed it several times. But then you're like, but it works most of the time.
It does. And the big complaint is that people are saying that the system is messed up and it's screwed over the American people. And but don't worry, that's not the first time this has happened. And So we're going to talk about the election of 1824 right after my soundbite.
I'm Dustin.
And I'm Wesley.
We host the Atheist Nomads podcast.
We're godless geeks who take a skeptical look at
Politics, religion, science, technology, and history.
We also interview leaders in the atheist, skeptic, and humanist community.
Check us out at atheistnomads.com.
That's atheistnomads.com.
Great Scott! Honey, we have to go, Yakk, to the past!
Every time, man. Every time. I love
That's
it.
awesome.
All right, so like I said, we're going to talk about the election of 1824. This was John Quincy Adams versus Andrew Jackson. Ding! So the election of 1824 was the first election where the candidate who received the popular vote did not win the presidential race. So this is the first time that happened. The first time they got gored.
That's a good one.
Andrew Jackson received 151,271 votes to John Q. Adams's 113,122. There were two other people running, which I'll get to that here in a minute. Perhaps the most interesting thing is that the election of 1824 is also the first and only election where the candidate with the most electoral votes did not win the White House. So let me explain. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me explain. In 1824, there were 261 electoral college votes, meaning candidates needed 131 electoral votes to win. Because there were 4 candidates, the other 2 were Henry Clay and William Crawford. The electoral votes were split. So Jackson received 99 electoral votes, the most of the 4 candidates, which of course is far short of the 131 he needs. And Adams got 84, with Clay and Crawford taking the remainder. So this means that the 12th Amendment kicked in. And we don't get to talk about the 12th Amendment very often. Good old number 12.
Okay.
So,
yeah. No one knows it exists, really, except
there is a
by
12th
numbers.
Amendment. And so for those
obviously
not familiar, that says, in part, that the person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed. And if no person have such majority, then from the persons having the highest numbers not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot the president. But in choosing the president, the votes shall be taken by states, the representation from each state having 1 vote. So essentially the House of Representatives now elect the president if this scenario occurs.
Right.
And so that's where things got interesting. So I mentioned Henry Clay was running as well. So presidential candidate Henry Clay was also Speaker of the House of Representatives, which is, of course, the very body now charged with electing the next president. Clay was not eligible to be elected president because he finished 4th in the race. In addition, Henry Clay hated Andrew Jackson with a passion. And
well, he wasn't the only one.
I'll get into that. Spoiler alert, I'm not an Andrew Jackson fan. So Clay's worry was that the votes in the House would end up split between Adams and Crawford, which would essentially hand Andrew Jackson the presidency. So to prevent this, Henry Clay forged an alliance between New England and Ohio Valley representatives who all agreed to vote for Adams. In return, Clay was to be named Secretary of State by Adams, and that's exactly what happened. And John Quincy Adams became president in 1824. So, unsurprisingly, Andrew Jackson and his supporters were pretty pissed off about this. Jackson denounced the political maneuvering as a, quote, corrupt bargain. And the election of 1824 became a symbol of a corrupt system where elite insiders pursued their own interests without heeding the will of the people. And just
that sounds really familiar.
Sounds a little bit familiar right now. So 4 years later, in 1828, Jackson would use this kind of disenchantment with the system and these charges of corruption. Jackson and his supporters really hammered away to Adams for the 4 years of Johnny Q's presidency.
Again, sounds very familiar.
And so he used this discontent to resoundingly defeat Adams. Because I can cuss on this show, he kicked Adams's ass in the election of 1828 because of this.
Yeah.
Jackson won 178 electoral votes to Adams's 83. Also in 1828, Jackson again won the popular vote with 642,553 votes to Adams's 500,897. And so the will of the people was reinstated, and if you know anything about Andrew Jackson, he was kind of a piece of shit. And so...
Kind of. He was really a piece of shit.
In my personal opinion here, in this case, the system actually protected America and Americans from their own kind of stupidity. And then it backfired 4 years later. So, just...
we can only hope this one...
So, I don't really have a moral to this story. Usually I have a moral. I don't really have one, other than just maybe take that as food for thought, and especially when you're considering abolishing the Electoral College.
Yeah, because it does serve a purpose occasionally. The whole point is to save Americans from themselves.
It is. There's a really great... I can't remember what... It's like an online magazine. I can't remember what it is, but there's a really great thing about the Electoral College. And it's satire, and they pretend it's written by James Madison, and it's entitled, like, You Stupid Fucking Fucks, or something like that. And it's all about... just Google it. It's hilarious, like, typing You Stupid Fucking Fucks. I think it's, like, Yale. I think it's the Yale Legal Review or something like that did a satire piece. So look that up. It's hilarious. And that's what I have. So just some food for thought and a fun historical narrative about the system screwing voters over, and then the voters basically screwing over the Indians.
Yeah. Yay.
And so I think that's all we have for this week.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's been an exhausting week.
It has. It really, really has.
And you guys will probably notice that Carrie is not present for the show.
Yeah, I was being a good parent and not allowing her to hear such horrid language. I'm sure
she never hears that at school. And she is an angel, I'm positive.
No, ever. She is. She is. It's her sister that's the problem.
Is that what it is?
See, they're twins, right? You got a good twin and a bad twin. We literally have that.
The good twin and the evil twin.
Yeah, that's pretty much. If you hear her sister talk, she talks like you.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It is for a 17-year-old girl.
That's true. All right, so on that note, I think we're going to close it out and hope you guys have a better week next week, because I'm sure most of the people listening to the podcast are pretty disappointed with the election results as well. If you want to get a hold of us, you can get a hold of me. I'm Tom. You can find me on Twitter at TCEssel. ESSEL is how you spell my last name. A lot of people hear Ethel. You can email me, tom@secularyakking.com. Find me on Facebook, also at TCEssel. That's where you can find me.
All right. You can find me in a multitude of places. Let's start with Twitter. I'm at the Motto Guy. Or you can, directly find the show at Secular Yakking. I'm on there quite a bit more than I am at the Motto Guy, especially lately. You can email me directly, robert@secularyakking.com. Facebook, The Motto Guy. You can always look up the show on Facebook. It's Secular Yakking. And if you really want to get in contact with us and you want to tell us something, we have a voicemail line. I always forget about the voicemail line.
Oh, yeah. Leave us a voicemail.
Right? Yeah, 704-802-YAKK. That's 9255, by the way, for those people who don't know how phones work.
What was that phone number again?
704-802-YAKK with 2 Ks.
There you go. Call us up, yell at us, we yell back, so whatever.
Occasionally.
And how can you support the show, Robert?
Oh, yeah, we do have a Patreon page. It's Patreon.com/Secular Yakking. We have one Patreon supporter right now. We would love to have a couple more.
Give us another Patreon supporter so I can get paid for this.
You get paid. Yeah, right. You got to pay the bills first.
And then, or also leave us a review.
Yes, iTunes reviews, because we didn't get any of this week either.
Leave us an iTunes review. Just pop on there. I mean, how long does it? I've never done an iTunes review on anything. How long does that take? Like 10 minutes, maybe?
It takes like a minute and a half.
It takes a minute and a half.
You're already on iTunes. All you got to do is type some words out, and then we'll read them on there.
Talk about how sexy my voice is or something. I don't know. 5 stars.
Yeah, that'll
people.
work.
5 stars. And on that note, goodbye, people of the internet.